Hi there, my name is Brian Hebert. I'm here at the Joggins Fossil Cliffs UNESCO World Heritage Site on the Upper Bay of Fundy of Nova Scotia, Canada. This UNESCO World Heritage Site comprises of 15 kilometers of coastline and has over 200 species of plants and animals that have been found by different scientists from around the world over the last 200 years. Over the next little bit, I'm going to show you some of these amazing finds, including the location of the oldest reptile in the world, Hylonomus lyelli. As a child, I loved reading about Sir Charles Lyell and William Dawson. In Dawson's Acadian Geology, he mentions all the adventures that he had here in Joggins.
What he and Lyell discovered were the oldest known tetrapods in the world. The sandstone cast of these fossil trees that reached over 30 meters tall and over 1 meter wide are all that remain. Like all fossils along the Joggins shore, if the fossils aren't protected, erosion will take its toll and they'll become masses of sand and gravel, unrecognizable as the fossils they once were. This is just one of the many fossilized trees that you can see along the Joggins Formation. When you visit the cliffs, make sure you check out every layer. You might notice a newly exposed tree that hasn't been uncovered in 315 million years. The sun is out, and we'll have a great day exploring the site. Although the shoreline has been walked millions of times, you still have a chance to find unique fossils every time you come to Joggins. The layers in the cliffs are made up of different types of sedimentary rocks. These include sandstone, siltstone, mudstone, and occasionally limestone and coal. Although the bedrock in Joggins dates back to more than 300 million years, the pinkish deposit that you see on top of the cliffs was deposited by glaciers just 10 to 15,000 years ago. We've made it to Coal Mine Point, the site of Lyell's Corner. This is where Sir William Dawson and Sir Charles Lyell discovered a newly fallen fossil tree in 1852. Inside that fossil tree, there was a new type of fossil that had never been found from that time period before. It was a tetrapod, which is a 4-footed amphibian similar to today's salamander. They named it Dendropaton. Lyell continued sharing his enthusiasm about the Joggins section with many scientists around the world, which led to a much greater appreciation of the Joggins section on the world stage. Dawson continued to work on Joggins material into the 1890s. His passion for the site was unequaled. He published dozens of papers about Joggins and the wide variety of unique fossils that were discovered over the years.
Here it is, Lyell's Corner. This is the spot where the oldest reptile in the world was found, Hylonomus lyelli.
Dawson had named it after his mentor Lyell, as a token of gratitude for all he had done to help the young scientist. Reading through Dawson's notebooks, it would have been a very exciting day when Lyell and Dawson discovered that tree at the bottom of the cliff. It had broken into many flat pieces, and they could see bones scattered on the surface of each one. Dawson returned to Coal Mine Point in the 1870s with a plan to recover 25 additional fossil trees while microblasting them using dynamite from the local sandstone quarry. This was a very successful endeavor due to the fact that Dawson recovered over 200 partial skeletons of new types of fossil animals that had not been found in the fossil record. The search for these fossil trees continues today. Whenever a tree falls on the beach, we collect it and study it. And using techniques like CT scanning, we're able to peer inside these fossil trees and gain information from the skeletons without damaging the bones themselves. Now you can see why this area is one of my favorites. Lyell's Corner and Coal Mine Point are quite amazing. We're going to start moving north now along the section, and a lot of people keep their eyes down here because there are so many fossils on this section of the beach. But they're very surprised. Once they get around this little corner and they look up, they see the classic section of the Joggins fossil cliffs, which is one of my favorite views of the whole section. You can start to see how the cliffs open up, and you can imagine the view that Charles Lyell had from the water when he visited Joggins for the first time in 1842. He wrote his sister that this was the grandest exposure that he had ever seen. Even though the Joggins fossil cliffs are located along the Bay of Fundy, all of the sediment that you see is fluvial in origin. That means they were formed by streams and rivers, and not in a marine setting, like an open ocean.
All right, we're just a little bit north of Coal Mine Point. We're in a place called the Archer Beds, and just a little further is called the 40 Brian Seam. Now the Archer Beds have invertebrate trackways. What that means is there are fossil shrimp and horseshoe crabs and bugs going through the sand and then drying out and then getting covered. And now 315 million years later, we're discovering these when they split open. You can see the trackways of these animals. It's really remarkable to see a horseshoe crab trackway that's 315 million years old.
One of my favorite photographs was taken in 1913 of the International Geological Congress that came to Joggins for a trip. You can see all the participants dressed up, having a wonderful dinner along the shore.
This is the classic section of the Joggins fossil cliffs. I've been coming here for more than 30 years, and it's still amazing what you can find on the shore every year. Things that are brand new that nobody's ever seen before. I love taking people from all around the world and showing them what we have in our neck of the woods. As you can see in the shoreline behind me, each successive layer is getting older and older and older. The whole UNESCO site is only 15.2 kilometers long. This is 1 kilometer of that, and this is the most prolific.
As you get to know the cliffs better, you start to realize that certain types of fossils are more abundant in certain parts of the section. This definitely helps when you're researching the site and you know where to go and where to look.
Just above me here is the Fundy Forest. In my opinion, this is the best location along the whole Joggins section. More important fossils have come from this location than anywhere else in the whole section. We're finding fossilized trees with amphibians and reptiles inside, and the next big fossil is probably going to come from this location.
Your first time at Joggins, when you're looking for these trees, make sure you look for the large column-like structures in the cliffs. Once you get your eyes accustomed to them, you can't miss them.
One of the big things people don't realize when they come to Joggins is how different everything looks today. Imagine Joggins just south of the equator in a hot, humid environment like a jungle. That's what it looked like back then. There were 3-foot wide dragonflies flying around. There were no flowers. There were small and large amphibians in the water. There were small reptiles scurrying around.
We have evidence of an animal named Arthropleura that was more than 2 meters long and 50 centimeters wide. Numerous trackways of this animal have been found along the section at Joggins. The entire Joggins UNESCO site is made up of more than 5,000 meters of sediment. There are millions of fossils along the beach at Joggins. With a little patience and practice, you might find a fossil that will add to our knowledge of the site. Some of the most common fossils in Joggins are the plants. This fossil is called Calamites, and it's related to modern horsetail plants. Every layer is like the page of a book, each telling its own story of the 315 million-year-old ecosystem. Here are some more examples of what the fossil trees look like in the cliffs. The trees are called Lycopsids. They are related to modern-day club mosses, and they grew to more than 30 meters in height. The fossilized bark of these trees is quite common along the shore, with many beautiful and unique patterns. Joggins was once a major coal mining community, and occasionally some of the old mine workings are exposed by the erosion of the cliff face. When I was young, I loved hearing the stories from the miners about all the fossils they saw underground. This will give you a great idea of the size of these trees and also the scale of the cliffs. You can see the tree in the middle of your screen. That is one layer in the Fundy Forest that has had dozens of fossil trees exposed over the last 30 to 40 years. As the cliffs erode further inland, more trees will be exposed, giving us a better overall picture of these forests and also the animals that are housed inside these trees.
The tide is going out for the last 4 hours. 4 hours ago, I would have been underwater. That's how high the Bay of Fundy comes up from this area. It smashes up against the cliffs every day, and over time, the cliffs erode back and expose more and more fossils. When Sir William Logan came here in the early 1840s, it was because of the request of Sir Charles Lyell. Lyell knew this area to be very important, and Logan used it as the very first project of the Geological Survey of Canada.
Another thing you'll notice when you visit Joggins are the intertidal reefs. These are sandstone extensions of the actual cliff face. They go under the Bay of Fundy and are only visible during the low tide. I should also mention, if you're coming to Joggins to look for fossils, make sure you check out the current tide times for that day. With so many world-famous discoveries made at the fossil cliffs over the past 200 years, it was inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2008. It's known as the most outstanding example of the Pennsylvanian subperiod of the Carboniferous, also known as the Coal Age. I remember hearing a story about Stephen Jay Gould, the famous Harvard evolutionary biologist. He had been giving a talk in Halifax in the mid-1980s. After the talk, he was asked if there was anything in particular he'd like to do for the rest of the day. He said he'd like to visit the Joggins fossil cliffs. So the people who organized the event were able to use the Department of Natural Resources helicopter, and they flew him up and landed right beside the Fundy Forest. Just imagine his excitement as he saw the cliffs for the first time from high in the air, then stepped off the helicopter and walked along the beach that he had only read about as a boy. Many people have experienced the same feeling over the years, of stepping onto the Joggins beach only after reading about it for their entire lives. With so many varieties of fossils to find on the shore, I wanted to give you an idea of what you can find when you're here at Joggins. Like I was saying earlier, there are more than 200 species of fossil plants, animals, and traces. The whole ecosystem is fossilized here at the Joggins Fossil Cliffs. You can walk the beach one day and find a wide variety of fossils. The next day, find completely different fossils. The Bay of Fundy is always tossing and turning the rocks of the Joggins Fossil Cliffs, and you find new things all the time. With over 15 kilometers to explore at the Joggins UNESCO World Heritage Site, most people only visit for 1 or 2 hours at the most, while some people come back time and time again. And hopefully you can see why. It's amazing to realize that the classic section of the Joggins Fossil Cliffs, which is about 1 kilometer in length, represents about 1 million years of geological time. As we arrive on the opposite side of the Joggins section, you can see Lower Cove in the distance. It has its own unique history, including the grindstone quarries. This is where William Dawson was able to buy his dynamite for his expeditions to Joggins in the 1870s.
The one thing that people don't think about when they visit Joggins fossil cliffs is the amount of erosion that happens year to year. The cliffs go inland over 40 kilometers, and with the severe winters that we have with the frost and the thaw, large sections of cliffs will fall regularly. So you have to be careful when you come here. But the amount of fossils that come down in these falls is amazing.
There was a resurgence of interest of fossils from Joggins in the 1950s through the 70s. That was led by Donald Baird of Princeton University and Robert Carroll of the Redpath Museum at McGill University. Lang Ferguson of Mount Allison University was also regularly bringing students to the site. In the 1980s, Martin Gibling of Dalhousie University visited Joggins and brought students like John Calder, who has written extensively on the fossils of Joggins, as well as the nomination dossier that was sent to UNESCO. The 21st century has brought renewed interest to Joggins. Hilary Madden of Carleton University brings students to the Joggins site every year and also works in collaboration with Matt Stimson of the New Brunswick Museum. They are all working on brand new projects and looking at old material in new ways. It's very exciting to see the new discoveries that these scientists will make in the near future and add to the depth of knowledge of the Joggins fossil cliffs. We are almost back to where we began. If you have any questions about Joggins, please check out the Atlantic Geoscience Society website for more resources. When you visit Joggins, make sure to check out the Joggins Fossil Institute. They are the caretakers of the UNESCO World Heritage Site and have a museum with some of the most iconic fossils that have been found at Joggins.
I should also mention that the fossils here in Nova Scotia are protected by law. You can get a heritage research permit through the Nova Scotia government, but if you find something when you're out on a walk and you think it's significant, you should contact the Natural History Museum and they'll help you identify it.
Thank you for spending some time with me along the Joggins fossil cliffs. I hope you get the opportunity to visit the cliffs in person. If you see me on the beach, make sure to say hello and I'll be happy to answer your questions.